Your financial stagnation is not a failure of willpower but a calculated result of predatory systems and psychological blind spots that drain your wealth through invisible leaks. While you prioritize identity over equity, a single habit like purchasing a new $50,000 vehicle can evaporate $20,000 in value within 3 years, contributing to a lifetime loss exceeding $300,000. The following analysis deconstructs the 10 most aggressive economic drains and provides the automated systems necessary to reclaim your capital. The arithmetic of poverty is often written in the ink of small, unremarkable habits that camouflage themselves as standard living. While most people scan their bank statements for a single catastrophic purchase, the true devastation occurs through a relentless series of microtransactions. These are the silent punctures in your financial hull that drain hundreds of dollars every single week, often leaving you oblivious to the leak until your accounts are dry. It is a mathematical certainty that these routines are the primary obstacle preventing your net worth from scaling alongside your salary. Over a typical career, failing to address just one of these patterns represents a missed opportunity of over $300,000. This is not a personal failure of character or a lack of mental toughness, rather, it is the predictable outcome of navigating an economic landscape designed to harvest your capital through default settings. The most egregious example of this wealth destruction begins the moment you turn the ignition of a brand new vehicle. The financial reality of the showroom floor is brutal. As soon as those tires touch public pavement, between $10,000 and $15,000 of your hard-earned equity vanishes into thin air. In the United States, where the average price for a new car has climbed above $50,000, the fiscal decay is staggering. Within a 36-month window, you will have watched nearly 40% of that purchase price dissolve, amounting to a $20,000 evaporation of personal wealth that can never be recovered or reinvested. We accept this destruction because we have been conditioned to confuse a fresh odometer with a guarantee of protection. According to a 2021 study by the Cornell University Department of Psychology, consumers consistently treat newness as a functional synonym for safety. This perception exists despite rigorous data proving that certified pre-owned vehicles offer identical performance and reliability over a 5-year ownership span. Furthermore, research from the Stanford Graduate School of Business suggests that we aren't actually shopping for a mechanical tool to move us from point A to point B. Instead, we are purchasing a high-interest costume designed to broadcast our social standing to strangers in the adjacent lane. The automotive industry exploits this drive for status by framing their products as a gateway to freedom, featuring pristine mountain passes in commercials rather than the reality of a congested commute. To escape this trap, you must replace emotional signaling with cold calculation. Purchasing a 3-year-old vehicle with 30,000 miles on it secures the same decade of utility while instantly reclaiming $15,000 to $20,000 in upfront capital. By automating a monthly transfer of the price difference into a brokerage account, you effectively transform a vanity project into a self-funding pension. This same culture of convenience manifests in our digital lives, specifically through the modern reliance on food delivery platforms. These services represent the ultimate invisible tax on the working class, serving as a primary catalyst for why individuals remain stagnant in their financial growth. The financial friction is hidden behind a slick interface, but the numbers are staggering. On the menu alone, items are typically marked up by 40%. Once the platform layers on its service charges, delivery premiums, and gratuities, a meal that costs $12 at the counter reaches a total of $22 by the time it hits your doorstep. Data from the National Bureau of Economic Research reveals that users pay an average total markup of 80% compared to picking up the food themselves. Is it truly rational to pay nearly double the value of your sustenance simply to avoid the minor friction of leaving the house? This is not merely a meal, it is a recurring penalty on your future self. Digital convenience has effectively anesthetized the neural pathways responsible for fiscal caution. While the physical act of handing over paper currency once served as a tactile speed bump for spending, modern delivery platforms have smoothed the road to insolvency. According to a 2022 study published in the Journal of Consumer Psychology, app-based transactions trigger a significantly lower neurological response in the regions of the brain that register financial loss compared to cash payments. Digitized spending essentially feels like a weightless interaction, a design feature that transforms a fleeting craving into a recurring economic leak. Consider the math of the common 3 delivery per week habit. At an average cost of $25 per order, you are siphoning $3,900 from your net worth annually. Preparing those exact same meals at home would cost roughly $1,200, leaving a surplus of $2,700 every year. When placed into an investment vehicle over a 30-year horizon, that $2,700 annual difference compounds into more than $300,000. That is the price of a mid-sized home or a decade of total vocational independence, all sacrificed for the convenience of pizza and pad thai that is forgotten by the following morning. Reclaiming this capital is not about summoning more willpower, it is about rewriting your environment. By automating a grocery delivery every Sunday, practicing batch cooking, and deleting delivery apps from your phone, you force the path of least resistance to align with your long-term wealth. This same psychological camouflage applies to the daily ritual of the $7 designer beverage. At a frequency of 5 days a week, this single habit commands an annual budget of between $1,820 and $2,500. The danger here is not the specific dollar amount, but the mental filing system discovered by researchers at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. Their findings indicate that humans categorize small, daily micro-purchases into an entirely different psychological silo than large, lump-sum expenses. You would likely experience significant anxiety over a $2,500 annual subscription invoice, yet your brain classifies $7 a day as a harmless necessity, filing it alongside essential utilities like gas or groceries. Furthermore, a 2019 MIT study revealed that these small daily transactions mimic the dopamine-driven reward loops found in social media scrolling. The sequence of ordering, the anticipation of waiting, and the physical act of receiving and sipping create a chemical addiction to the routine itself rather than the caffeine. Your biology is chasing the loop, not the stimulant. You can satisfy this neurological craving at 90% less cost by investing in a high-quality home espresso or pour-over setup. The $2,200 saved by pivoting this ritual is equivalent to an entire yearly Roth IRA contribution. Financing your complete retirement through a simple change in coffee preparation is a strategic move that most individuals only appreciate when it is too late. The leakage continues in the wardrobe, where the average American now acquires 68 individual garments every year. While the Environmental Protection Agency reports that 85% of all textiles eventually find their way into landfills, many of these items spend years as dormant capital in a closet, frequently with the original price tag still attached. This behavior is driven by a cognitive distortion highlighted in a 2020 study from Harvard Business School, which suggests that individuals consistently overestimate the desires of their future selves. You aren't just buying fabric, you are financing a hallucination of a version of yourself who will actually have the occasion and the desire to wear that specific outfit. Emotional fulfillment in modern consumerism is a phantom that vanishes the moment the transaction clears. This is most evident in the graveyard of one-time event attire, those high-cost garments purchased for weddings, galas, or corporate holiday parties. You might invest $200 to $400 in a single outfit that eventually serves as nothing more than expensive wallpaper for the back of your closet. The psychological machinery behind this is revealed in research from Northwestern University, which demonstrates that the peak of dopamine release occurs at the point of purchase rather than the point of use. You are effectively paying for the thrill of the hunt, not the utility of the capture. The actual event becomes a secondary concern to the chemical rush of the checkout line. Fast fashion entities exploit this by manufacturing artificial scarcity around trends designed to expire every 90 days. They convince you that your current identity is obsolete, yet the reality is that your brain is simply a poor architect of its own future satisfaction. The strategic countermove is to establish a compact, versatile wardrobe of 25 to 30 high-caliber pieces and utilize the rental economy for singular occasions. The same engineering of artificial obsolescence fuels the relentless cycle of hardware upgrades. Despite the fact that your current smartphone is likely a perfectly functional piece of technology, industry giants like Apple and Samsung invest billions to convince you otherwise. While marketing materials highlight processors that run 12% faster in laboratory environments or cameras with marginal sensor improvements, these gains are frequently imperceptible in daily life. A 2021 analysis by Consumer Reports confirms that the typical smartphone retains over 90% of its peak performance even after 3 years of service. Most perceived failures are actually simple maintenance issues. For instance, a $79 battery replacement can fully restore a device's longevity. Yet, the average consumer still feels the urge to upgrade every 2.5 years to avoid the perceived social tax of having a dated device. This irrationality extends into the purchase of extended warranties, a product category where fear is the primary sales agent. Data from Warranty Week indicates that only 20% of these contracts are ever exercised, and when they are, the average payout covers less than half of the initial premium cost. We ignore this math because of loss aversion, a principle defined by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, which suggests that the sting of a potential loss is twice as potent as the joy of an equivalent gain. Insurance providers effectively profit from this neurological glitch. By rejecting the unnecessary upgrade and the predatory warranty, you can reclaim $1,000 to $1,500 annually. Over a 30-year career, this discipline constructs a robust emergency fund from the sheer avoidance of marketing-induced panic. The drainage becomes even more insidious as it moves into the mundane aisles of the grocery store. This invisible leak operates in the background of every shopping trip, often centered on the psychological lure of name-brand labeling. There is a profound industrial irony in the fact that store-brand alternatives are frequently manufactured in the exact same facilities as their premium-priced counterparts. They utilize the same raw ingredients and identical production protocols, yet consumers pay a significant surcharge for the privilege of a familiar logo. 73% of the time, the expensive logo on your grocery shelf loses to the generic competitor. According to a 2023 analysis by Consumer Reports, store brands either equaled or outperformed their name-brand rivals in the vast majority of blind taste tests. Why, then, do you find yourself instinctively reaching for the more expensive package? The answer lies in research from Princeton, which indicates that constant exposure to a brand's iconography triggers a familiarity response that your brain erroneously interprets as a certificate of trust. You aren't making a choice based on flavor profile, you are merely acknowledging a visual pattern. This neurological shortcut convinces you that a recognizable label is synonymous with superior quality, even when the contents are identical. The financial erosion intensifies when you enter the snack aisle, a zone where your long-term health goals are frequently sabotaged by immediate neurological cravings. Your prefrontal cortex might be shopping for a balanced week of nutrition, but your primitive brain is shopping for a hit of glucose and salt. This leads to a cart filled with impulse purchases like candy, chips, and redundant protein bars that merely join the 14 unopened boxes already sitting in your pantry. A study from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston confirms that these unplanned, non-essential additions inflate the cost of the average grocery trip by 18%. Retailers weaponize this by burying the staples in the furthest corners of the store while lining eye-level shelves with high-margin temptations. They are essentially mining the chasm between your rational intentions and your immediate impulses. To defend your capital, you must migrate to online ordering to bypass these physical ambushes and commit to store brands for every category. Adopting these two habits can slash your monthly grocery expenses by 30% to 40%, funneling $3,000 to $5,000 back into your bank account every year. Beyond the pantry, a similar psychological vulnerability fuels the steady consumption of seasonal trinkets and disposable household goods. These purchases are the financial equivalent of a slow drip leak, because each $15 scented candle or $9 plastic pumpkin feels inconsequential, we fail to recognize the cumulative damage. Research from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania reveals that the typical household spends $1,200 annually on temporary decor and paper products. The absurdity of this expenditure is highlighted by the fact that most of these items are discarded within a 90-day window. You are effectively paying over $1,000 a year for 3-month bursts of temporary atmosphere. We justify this waste through the lens of nesting or self-care, falling victim to what researchers call the fresh start effect. Every shift in the weather acts as a psychological reset button, making you feel as though your living space is obsolete unless it matches the current season. This creates a perpetual cycle of acquisition and disposal that serves the home goods industry rather than your net worth. To break this loop, you must transition to durable, reusable alternatives like cloth towels and refillable candles, while strictly adhering to a mandate of using existing inventory before considering any new purchase. The internal mechanics of your budget are being dismantled by a series of linguistic illusions and emotional traps. When you pull up to the pump, you likely encounter the premium label, a term that functions as a high-priced adjective rather than a functional upgrade. Unless your engine specifically mandates high-octane fuel, you are essentially subsidizing a marketing department. Rigorous testing by AAA reveals that utilizing premium gasoline in vehicles engineered for regular fuel yields zero measurable improvements in engine longevity, fuel efficiency, or raw horsepower. You are voluntarily surrendering an extra 40 to 60 cents per gallon for a sticker that offers no mechanical return. This same logic applies to the bottle of water in your cup holder. Despite the 3,000% price markup, a 2022 analysis by the Natural Resources Defense Council discovered that approximately 25% of bottled water is nothing more than municipal tap water poured into a branded plastic vessel. In many American jurisdictions, the tap water at your sink is actually subjected to more frequent testing and more stringent safety protocols than the commercial alternative you are financing. This surrender of rational calculation is perhaps most visible in the wellness industry, a global behemoth now valued at over $5 trillion. Marketers utilize what psychologists call the health halo effect, using minimalist aesthetics and influencer endorsements to convince you that charcoal toothpastes, collagen gummies, and adaptogen shots are biological necessities rather than discretionary wants. When a product is successfully rebranded as a health essential, your brain effectively bypasses any cost-benefit analysis. Survey the area beneath your bathroom sink. The graveyard of half-used serums and abandoned mushroom supplements is evidence of a spending pattern fueled by the novelty of the purchase rather than a genuine medical need. By pivoting to a basic skincare routine, a Brita filter, and standard fuel, you can reclaim $1,000 to $2,000 annually without a single percentage point of decline in your actual quality of life. The financial hemorrhaging reaches its peak with the modern obsession with high-status leisure. We are currently witnessing a crisis where a staggering 36% of Americans, according to a 2023 Bankrate survey, admitted to accruing debt to finance their most recent vacation. These individuals are effectively paying compounding interest on a fading memory, utilizing credit cards and buy now pay later schemes to fund lifestyles they cannot sustain. The tragic irony is that the brain is a poor record keeper of luxury. Research from Daniel Kahneman's laboratory at Princeton suggests that we evaluate experiences based almost exclusively on the peak moment and the final moment. A year after the fact, your long-term memory cannot distinguish between a $5,000 all-inclusive resort and an $800 weekend at a local state park cabin because the thread count of the sheets is discarded while only the emotional highlights remains. Choosing the modest option leaves $4,200 in your possession. That's 4 extra years of compounding growth on $4,200 you didn't need to spend. And social media has made this worse. Digital performance has become a surcharge on modern leisure. According to a 2023 study from Columbia Business School, the intention to broadcast a journey on social media inflates vacation spending by an average of 32%. We are no longer curating experiences for our own senses, we are purchasing stage props for a virtual audience. This performative consumption creates a massive financial gap, such as paying $4,200 extra for a beachfront suite simply because the view serves as a superior digital backdrop, even though the core memory remains the same. This drive for proximity is often a fiscal hallucination. Research from the University of Texas in 2022 found that after 30 days, the emotional residue of a live concert is virtually indistinguishable from the satisfaction of streaming that same performance. While the immediate sensory input of the live event is more percussive, the long-term mental archive levels the playing field. Embracing regional travel or high-quality streaming offers a 70% cost reduction for the same lasting fulfillment, yet we continue to pay a premium for the temporary intensity. These individual leaks are dangerous precisely because they are quiet. They operate below the threshold of our psychological alarm systems, functioning as a slow-motion heist of our future. A 2018 University of Chicago study highlights this cognitive blindness, revealing that people typically underestimate their recurring micro-expenses by 40% to 60%. You might estimate your annual food delivery habit at $1,500, but the ledger likely reveals a staggering $3,900. You might guess you spent $500 on seasonal aesthetics, when the reality is closer to $1,200. When you aggregate these invisible punctures over a 30-year horizon, the numbers become catastrophic. New car depreciation drains over $60,000. Food delivery surcharges claim $81,000. Your daily designer beverages consume $75,000. The graveyard of unworn apparel accounts for $45,000, and the cycle of phone upgrades and warranties takes another $45,000. Brand name grocery premiums siphon $90,000, while seasonal disposables and wellness fads combined extract another $81,000. Add $60,000 in vacation overspending, and you have forfeited over $530,000. If you redirected that $530,000 into a portfolio yielding an 8% annual return over 30 years, you would be looking at a balance exceeding $1.5 million. This is the capital that buys a decade of early retirement. It is the difference between a state of constant financial anxiety and the peace of absolute solvency at age 65. This shortfall is not a result of a low salary, but of 10 distinct, invisible drains that were never flagged as threats. To stop this, you must realize that willpower is an insufficient tool. A 2019 meta-analysis from the American Psychological Association found that discipline-based financial strategies fail at a rate of 85%, identical to the failure rate of willpower-based dieting. Every time you consciously resist a temptation, you deplete a finite reservoir of self-control. By the end of a demanding workday, your mental guard is inevitably lowered, leaving you defenseless against the next impulse buy or delivery notification. You aren't failing because you are weak, you are failing because you are fighting an uphill battle against a system designed to exhaust you. Relying on sheer willpower is a losing battle against your own biology. Instead of exhausting your mental reserves by trying harder to resist temptation, you must construct a fortress of automation. This transition from discipline to architecture requires only a single afternoon or perhaps two, yet it yields a lifetime of dividends. By installing these financial guardrails, you allow a silent machinery to redirect thousands of dollars every year into your future accounts, ensuring that when you reach 65, your primary emotion is peace rather than a cold sweat of panic. Think of it as installing a GPS for your wealth. Instead of fighting against your natural impulses, you are simply laying down new tracks for your brain to follow. The blueprint for this systemic overhaul involves 10 distinct structural shifts. First, you must bypass your own decision-making by automating savings so the funds vanish before your paycheck ever reaches your checking account. Control your daily flow by utilizing a dedicated spending account restricted by a firm monthly ceiling, and physically distance yourself from temptation by deleting delivery apps from your phone. Implement a mandatory 48-hour cooling-off period for any non-essential purchase exceeding $50, and shift your grocery habits to online platforms using a predetermined list to kill impulse buys. Streamline your life further by adopting a capsule wardrobe, choosing store-brand products over expensive labels, and dedicating Sundays to batch cooking your meals. Finally, remove the friction of easy debt by locking your credit card in a drawer and switching to a debit card that displays a live, dropping balance. When you watch that number plummet in real time, the psychological friction returns, acting as a natural brake on your consumption. These tactics succeed because they account for the 3 cognitive glitches that usually bankrupt us. We are biologically wired to prioritize today's pleasure over tomorrow's stability, to ignore the cumulative bleed of tiny, recurring expenses, and to hide the true scale of our spending by sorting costs into disconnected mental boxes. Once you recognize these patterns, the illusion of your own financial inadequacy shatters. You are not inherently irresponsible or a failure, You are simply a human mind attempting to navigate a modern economy that has spent trillions of dollars perfecting the art of exploiting your neural weaknesses. You are currently trapped in a game where the rules were written to ensure you lose. The ultimate choice is whether you continue to play by their exploitative manual or begin constructing a private system that serves your own interests.